The all-new Yamaha V6 Offshore F350. It's a featherweight knockout, the lightest 350 horsepower outboard on the water, exhilarating boating and incredible control in a powerfully light design. The Yamaha V6 Offshore F350.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
£60. Mike Dean, regular contributor to the Fisherman's weekly video fishing forecast out of Long Island, has broken the Manhattan Cup record for largest striped bass ever in that event, taping out at 47 inches with a chunky 32-inch girth. I gotta wonder if this fish ever dropped her eggs. The calculations for estimating weight, length times girth divided by 800 put Dean's tournament-winning fish at 60.16 pounds. It was caught aboard Captain Adrian Muller's Brooklyn-based Rockfish charters. Congrats. Now this Manhattan Cup, as every one of them, is a first-class event, from the check-in breakfast to the final awards. The winner of the Christopher J. Raguso Memorial Cup for the wounded service veteran with the largest striper was Dwayne Yellowfin, with another monster striper estimated at 52.56 pounds, 50 inches in length, and a 29-inch girth. That was caught aboard Captain Willie Davis's Epic One. Congrats, Captain Willie. Now, Don Meyer caught the largest striper on an artificial 29.61 pounds with Captain Anthony Grassi aboard fin chaser Makyra. Roger Raw also tallied a big bait bass of 52.56 pounds aboard Captain Frank Giesi's Greta. Captain Andy Lacasio of Long Island Fishing Charters won a gray striper mount for largest average length of 5 striped bass tagged with Gray Fish Tag Research streamer tags. He also had the top prize for most stripers caught by an angler named John O'Brien. Top bluefish caught and released at the Manhattan Cup. Joe Albanese took top honors, 10.66 pounds for largest on an artificial, fishing with Captain Frank Crescitelli aboard the fin chaser, with Jose Enchotegui grabbing largest bluefish on bait, 10.08 pounds aboard Captain Adam Frank's Legal Sea. Now, there's also a largest bluefish on the fly that was angled by Bill Dawson, 4.93 pounds, fishing with another regular contributor to the Fisherman magazine, Captain Mike Century, aboard Anglers of Legends Sportfish. Now, proceeds from the Manhattan Cup benefit veterans of our nation's armed forces, along with local charities and organizations, including Gray Fish Tag Research and our annual Northeast Striped Bass Study. 60.16 pounds. Congratulations, Mike Dean. It's Thursday, June 12th. I'm Jim Hutchinson with a New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine, and that is Don Morantz from the Jersey Coast Anglers Association. He had the big fish for us, 39 pounds. On Friday, I was fishing with Captain Brian Rice and crew of Jersey Devil Sport Fishing. No, we didn't get any hardware, but it was still a great event. And I'm so proud of Mike Dean for getting that record-breaking striper, that catch and release. Mike does a lot of volunteer work with the Manhattan Cup and the Fisheries Conservation Trust. So it's really great to see him memorialized in that event. Now, on Friday during the Cup aboard Jersey Devil, we did see plenty of bunker schools off of northern Monmouth County, the Sandy Hook region. We also saw quite a bit of squid, mark them underneath on the machine, which is really a good sign as we look ahead towards the very first day of summer, which is a week from today. So I really kind of hope to see areas like the Seaside Lump, for example, loaded up with squid again during this summer, and have another good mid-range tuna bite, well, right up until the commercial squid season begins, which I think, as I recall, was August 1st last year. So, while big bass seem to understand the calendar as well, here we are a week before summer, and most of those big fish are slowly but surely sliding to the east. I do have to wonder if those intensifying schools of bunker that we're seeing off the Jersey Shore at this point, what exactly they'll yield next. I spoke with Captain Chris Lido of the Gambler Sport Fishing Boat, the party boat Gambler out of Point Pleasant this week. He said he had a cobia on board earlier this week on one of their fluke trips, and that was for Pete Stolniker who's from Little Egg Harbor Township. So that's kind of cool to see. Now, Leeds also told me that on their last, one of their last tilefish trips in the last couple of weeks, they had a jumbo, a monster golden tilefish for Chris Zodi of Summit, 55 pounds, the biggest of a successful tilefish trip season aboard the Gambler, which I believe that boat now is really kind of focused on the waning days of black sea bass and also some of the fluking. Folks are asking if fluke are setting up along the reefs and rock piles offshore as this water temperature continues to increase. I surely believe so. Back on that bunker situation, I got a message this week from a fisherman reader who said, quote, "Big schools of bunker off the beach in Cape May, been throwing poppers, no fish under them." Now, this isn't to say that there aren't striped bass in those bunker schools in the New Jersey, Delaware region at this point. Did get a message from the folks at Julian's Bait and Tackle in Atlantic Highlands. John Murphy of Morristown, he caught and released this monster off the Sandy Hook beaches just the other day. So, yeah, there's still some stripers around. But on that cobia front, with those bunker schools, if you have a live well on board your boat, make sure to put a couple of liveys in the live well. Keep a live line outfit all ready to go just in case you might stumble into some of those torpedoes, those brown shapes of those jumbo cobia. I would also suggest have a spinning outfit ready to go, armed and ready with a black bomber. It seems like that's one of the plugs that really turns cobia mad. So as you're working on those inshore and mid-range grounds, certainly keep an eye out. The polarized glasses always make that very helpful to see into the water and see some of those brown shapes of a cobia that may be swimming around the schools of bunker, or maybe outside one of those sea buoys right outside the inlet as well. We do have one more week of sea bassing at the Jersey Shore until the windows slam shut on our spring season. That's that 10 fish bag and 12.5-inch size limit. That will end after June 19th. And then the one fish, the one black sea bass, which is essentially a bycatch allowance, that will return on July 1st and run through the end of August, again with that same 12.5-inch size limit here in New Jersey. I mentioned bunker, I also mentioned squid, but sand eels are becoming more prevalent as well at this point as we head into the first days of summer. My buddy Jeff Lawrence came down from New York. He fished a 10-hour sea bass trip aboard the Gambler over the weekend, said a slow start turned to bass madness by midday with sand eel type jigs getting the nod. In fact, I heard from Kim Robinson this week, who fished with her husband Ryan aboard Never Enough charters out of Avalon. They limited out on sea bass this past Monday with one 20-incher caught on a diamond jig with a green tail. Also had a porgy, couple of ling, throwback cod before they capped off the day with a couple of summer flounder in the back bays as well. Now you see how Kim was holding that sea bass, holding that jig, that diamond jig with the green tail. Nice way of landing black sea bass. Well, that comes as a recommendation from a good friend of mine. For folks looking to jig up some of the finer sea bass specimens in these waning days of spring, the spring sea bass season, on Open Boat, Jenny Ackerman switches gears from rigs to jigs to talk diamonds. Yes, a sea bass and girl's best friend.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Open Boat. Now, last week I talked about a sea bass rig that I like to use, and I hinted at the one jig to rule them all while sea bass fishing. Hopefully that week span gave you time to think about what jig I was going to be talking about, because now's the time to talk about the diamond jig. Now, why do I like using a diamond jig while sea bass fishing? The diamond jigs get to the bottom faster. They fight through strong underwater current, so you can jig up some nice knuckleheads. They have a single hook. That's my pet peeve. I love fishing single hooks on lures. It just makes your life so much easier. Your hookup ratio may be altered. I mean, if you're like surf fishing, but sea bass, you're set with this. So you have that single hook, which makes it easier when you're flinging in sea bass. You can literally just grab the jig itself and plop the sea bass off. Easy peasy, fill the box, lemon squeezy. Now, although I'm sitting in the shade here, you can still see the shine of the diamond jig. When that jig gets down to the bottom and you're jigging it, it flutters a little and it'll make that flash. So it looks like a bait fish, and sea bass cannot resist that. I bet you if I put this thing over my koi pond behind me, the freaking koi would be going nuts. They think it's a giant Cheerio bait fish that they want to feast on. But the sea bass can't resist a good old diamond jig. Now you can range in the ounces. This one's a 3-ouncer here. You can go 2, 3, 4, up to like 8 ounces, depending on the conditions, how deep you are, stuff like that. Now, I'm a big history buff. If you read my article about bucktailing in the surf, there was a whole paragraph talking about the history of the bucktail. Because if you do your research on these things, a lot of these lures and rods and reels and different aspects of fishing are just rich with history. And it's so much fun to learn and just share all these fun facts with you guys. But this is just the history buff and me geeking out. But so the diamond jig, history of it. It's been around for almost 100 years. It was first created in the 1920s by a guy out of Bridgeport, Connecticut. So shout out New Englanders. His name was John Schmook. And he worked for a toy company, but he created the diamond jig, and they dubbed it the Bridgeport diamond jig. Now today, of course, there's a ton of different companies making their own and just like different variants of the diamond jig, stuff like that. But this one has been a pinnacle sea bass crusher for over 100 years. So you can pick yourself up one of these. If you want to use, you can use a spinning rod. A lot of guys are big fans of slow pitch jigging when it comes to sea bass fishing. So get out there, you got your rig set up, you got your jig now, catch some knuckleheads. I'll see you guys on next week's Open Boat.
It was another exciting week in the Coastal Kayak Clash with 3 fish hitting the board. New York's William Mabanta moved up to second place in the fluke category with his 24.75-inch fluke. Jason Oser kept the pressure on with his category-leading 21.25-inch sea bass. And Tom Howard of Rhode Island had the biggest fish of the week with a 47-inch cow stripe bass. The top 3 looks like this. Tom Howard now sits in third place with 5 points. Bob Wagner holds steady in second place with 6 points. And Justin Oser maintains a strong lead with 9 points. To get all the information on how to enter, visit thefisherman.com/contests.
Now, in this week's digital weekly edition of the Fisherman magazine, the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition, that's Sue Misak on the cover. She's been tangled up in blues while fishing with husband Bob much of the spring. Actually, Bob and Sue have been doing a real bang-up job on the stripers, the bluefish, as well as the black drum along the central Jersey coast. But assuredly, the bluefish invasion seems to have set up quite nicely here at the Jersey Shore this season, offering another quality option for putting a bend in the rod. Beachfront, yes, but also out off the central Jersey coast in particular for miles. That's the word I got. 3 to 5 pounders crashing on top, according to Captain Jeff Evans, who runs out of the Waretown Barnegat area. At least one weekie in that bedlam as well. But Jeff did also tell me that the bluefish are spread out throughout Barnegat Bay as well. His son John has been catching them on mag darters out back. Great to see that as well. I spoke to Frank at Gabriel Tackle in Brick this week. He said stripers are on the prowl in the upper stretches of Barnegat Bay at night. I think the same thing down into the Long Beach Island stretch and farther south through Absecon area, Atlantic City area, Absecon Inlet, down the coast, past Strathmere and into Cape May County as well. And of course, keep an eye out on those weak fish as well. Comfortable nights, you might want to head out towards the bridges or bulkheads, the dock lights throw those pink plastics, those plastic zooms and finesse, or the NLBNs, give a shot at some of those tide runner weakfish that are in the area as well. Also in the digital edition of the Fisherman magazine, available online to subscribers this week at thefisherman.com, you'll see in our calendar events a couple of weekend tournaments worth a look, especially for you offshore fishermen. Now, the Jersey Coast shark anglers have bluefin fever this week, and the only cure for that is to pick your favorite day from June 14th through the 16th. For details on bluefin fever, call Rick Carroll, 732-773-3409, or Joe Cahart at 862-432-6814. South Jersey Marina out of Cape May, also celebrating the end of another school year with the Schools Out Tuna Tournament, June 19th to the 23rd. Next week, captain's meeting is Wednesday. You can get more details on that event, southjerseytournaments.com. And again, you'll find that in the June edition of the Fisherman magazine. You'll also find that, subscribers, in this week's digital copy. The drum bite on Delaware Bay is quickly winding down. South Jersey field editor Anthony Califano reports this week at thefisherman.com that Delaware Bay is still giving up black drum for anglers fishing the nighttime shift in particular, but he noted that as spring gives way to summer, spot, croaker, and kingfish are already making an appearance along the front beaches and around the inlets in Atlantic and Cape May County. Now, where do those black drum go after they're done with their estuary invasion? I don't know. Now, I'm not sure that anybody really knows. But John Schlemuski found one on Saturday while fishing with Mark D'Amato for fluke by the Verrazano out near Hoffman and Swinburne Islands in the Raritan Bay, right off of Sandy Hook, fishing in about 16 feet of water. So keep an eye out up there, especially on those flats areas in the Raritan Bay. With those polarized glasses that I mentioned, you might just see schools of drum passing by on the way to wherever it is they happen to go. Dennis Portland from Fairfield was fishing the Sandy Hook area in the surf Sunday afternoon, landed a 28-inch, 7-pound fluke off North Beach. He checked that fish in at Giglio's in Seabright after nabbing it on a 1.5-inch white glow ball bucktail tsunami fluke rig, 5-inch white glow gulp on top, 5-inch pink shine on the bottom, all 5-inch gulps, tsunami shield rod, and a Penn 3000 reel for those keeping track. Dennis told me, quote, "My wife tells me that for Father's Day, I will be getting my subscription to the Fisherman magazine. She's the best. Indeed, my friend, the very best. God bless you both." Now, for those of you working the back bays and salty rivers in the weekend ahead for summer flounder in the New Jersey, Delaware Bay region, Saturday and Sunday, you'll be mostly working in the morning on the outgoing water, depending on how early you depart. I do expect a busy weekend ahead at the Jersey Shore as schools do let out. So it's advisable if you want to get a nice quiet morning of fluking in, you want to get out there early. Get out there as the birds are picking at worms in your front lawn. Weather-wise, the midweek forecast along the central Jersey coast shows late-day rains on Friday. But for the most part, things are looking pretty tasty as we get into Saturday and Sunday. In your NOAA Marine forecast inshore, the midweek forecast shows stiff southeasterlies, or southerlies, primarily southerlies. They're southeast and southwest on Friday. They're expected to turn out of the northeast on Saturday. Now, Sunday, Father's Day, by all accounts, it looks like the primo day for a little fluking out back with pop. We'll look at South Jersey sheepshead, pass along some bold yellowfin predictions in our reports this week from the local fleet. That's about 2 minutes away. But first, let's head west for our weekly freshwater update with my friend George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, the weather's getting much, much better for the weekend. Looks like you might be in for a little treat. As a matter of fact, you may even need a pair of these this coming weekend. But right now, things are looking good, guys. You know, there's a lot of great fishing pretty much everywhere. But two things are really rising to the top. That's the striper and the smallmouth fishing, kind of all over the place. Matter of fact, I had a few check-ins this week I want to share with you guys. So hopefully you can get out on these fish this weekend. Like I said, stripers and smallmouth are kind of dominating. We had guys in the Delaware River for checking in. My good friend Tim Keebler, he checked in, said the striper fishing. Stripers, he said, are a little bit all over the place. You got to work a little bit for them, but once you get into them, it's going to be pretty rewarding. There's a lot of good fish up in the river, probably around the Washington crossing area, and that whole area up in the non-tidal. He said they were kind of scattered, but again, work hard, you'll get into some fish. Also the smallmouth, he said they're really starting to come into their own as well. Lots of great smallmouth fishing, so get out either one of them, you can't go wrong, guys. Also, from the Delaware River, we had Bailey Keebler check in. She got herself into a really nice little striper. Well, not little, a really nice striper, as a matter of fact. Also, we had Lee Phillips check in, and he got himself one of those really big girls up in those waters on the Delaware River. Now, keeping with the stripers, guys, we had guys checking in from Wallen Pompack. We had a great striper from Bob Summers. You know, he was up there getting them as well. And also Josh Taylor on Beltsville. The guys in the freshwater lakes and rivers are certainly getting on them. And Josh is shown here releasing one of the big girls he got to be out and caught again. Awesome. Guys, I know there's a lot of great fishing this week, and I hope you get into some of these too. All the dads out there, have yourself a great Father's Day. Go get on them. But from Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors Guy.
The Coastal Kayak Clash is back for 2024. Win this Old Town Sportsman PDL 120 fully outfitted by YakAttack.com. Our second place winner will take home this Humminbird Helix 7. Win third place and you walk away $500 richer. And there are many other ways to win as well. We've got reels from Daiwa and lures and gear from Yozori. If you fish from a kayak and you're a Fisherman subscriber, you're eligible to enter the CKC. Catch one of 8 qualifying species. Photograph them next to a flat ruler showing the Fisherman tag with your kayak clearly visible and get yourself on the leaderboard. This kayak-only tournament kicks off May 1st and ends November 30th. Get all the details at thefisherman.com.
Well said, George, and happy Father's Day to my old man and my bestest friend, Hutch Sr. The fruits of his labors from a 1970s era trip aboard the Miss Barnegat Light. Now, while he was cranking in the bluefish at the stern in the chum slick, I was actually inside the cabin taking a nap. To the guy in the yellow slicker downwind of me that evening back in 75, 76, if you're listening, I apologize. Bluefish do provide a good option for subscribers looking to get on the board in the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge. Yes, members only contest. You're competing for all kinds of great prizes, but somebody's going to be cruising out in a Steiger at the end of the season. There are Seabass options as well, and that board is wide open. So if you get yourself a humpback this weekend and you're a Fisherman subscriber, don't let the mates clean that big one. Bring it into the tackle shop, weigh it in, get yourself on the board. For a look at the leaderboard, let's go back to the virtual studios with my friend Tim Smith.
And now the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge entries for the week. In the Sea Robin category, we had 4 entries. There was Ahmed Solomon, a Long Island subscriber, weighing in his catch at 3.25 pounds, taking the top spot, putting Dan Solomon into second place. Kyle Kraus, also a Long Island subscriber, enters his second entry with his Sea Robin at 2.2 pounds, putting him into 6th place, but not enough to bump Anthony Savino out of 5th. Taking the 7th spot is another Long Island subscriber, Joseph Yam, with his Sea Robin weighing in at 2.10 pounds, putting him into 2nd place on the leaderboard. And we have a Jersey subscriber, Johnny Rouse, with his entry coming in at 2 pounds. Placing second with his fluke entry is Long Island subscriber Richard Rubio, coming in at 7.56 pounds. This week's leaderboard standing is Anthony Savino at 19 points, Joseph Yam with 12 points, knocking Frank Shea into 3rd with 10 points. Just a reminder, for your chance to win the grand prize Steiger Craft powered by Yamaha and other great prizes, you need to be a subscriber to the Fisherman magazine and use the 2024 entry form filled out completely, available at thefisherman.com/contests.
South Jersey sheepshead. The reports are starting to come in to us here at the Fisherman magazine. Dr. Cool, Adam Aguiar, let me know that Grant here has been herding sheep on his kayak. Now, Grant says, too, they must be spawning because the male sauce is getting all over the yak. Now, much like Black Drum, I'm not sure that fisheries managers really know too much about sheepshead, where they migrate, the habits, their spawning habits, as far as this far north in the migration. But like Captain Dan Schaefer of Insomniac Guide Service out of South Jersey once told me, after banging of the drum, expect to commence with the herding of the sheep soon after. Now, while green crabs may be difficult to procure without an active tog fishery here in the Garden State right now, try fiddlers or sand crabs, of course. Even bits of shedder crab on a tog jig. Shedders, of course, can be picked up by giving Captain Dave Scholl at Absecon Bay Sportsman a call. You'll find his contact information in the Fisherman magazine. That's where I get a lot of my shedders. He also does a lot of softies as well, so maybe bring a couple of those tasty critters back home for dinner as well. Tom P's weekly offshore report from the Fisherman magazine is back. You can find it in the printed July monthly that'll be out in about 2 weeks, but it's also available every Monday afternoon by going over to thefisherman.com, selecting the reports, going down to offshore, and you can get the latest reports. Several of the captains that Tom spoke to on Sunday predicted that yellowfin action was about ready to take off here along the Jersey coast. They said any day now. When I say any day, we were expecting perhaps the first yellowfin reports at the Jersey Shore sometime this week. Bluefin are here, of course, and a bit scattered, but we're go time as we head into the opening days of the summer of 2024, which begins next week. In terms of making that run east, NOAA marine weather forecast on the offshore grounds, when I took a look at it midweek from the Hudson to Baltimore, that too looks pretty darn good to me. Bluefin fever this week, who knows? Perhaps the tuna express deliveries in my neighborhood of the fishing afflicted will also commence in the days ahead. Wasabi me, Batman, I'm ready to go. One final thought this week, and we'll go back to this week's digital weekly edition, the one with Sue on the cover with that bluefish. Now, inside the red circle there at the bottom, showing up in our reports this week for the headboats running out of Belmar, a cool thing to see in terms of whiting reports. We got that on a couple of boats, and I'm not sure how long they'll be around or even where they'll be. But for the fish species that has been missing for decades, it's nice to see more of the whiting showing up in the reports. It lends itself well to a final tip that I can give you this week. Headboats here at the Jersey Shore offer an incredible opportunity to economically let somebody else do the driving, right? You can get on with your family, your friends, a couple of guys, you want somebody else to do the captaining, you don't want to have to worry about running the boat, and of course you don't even have to worry about cleaning fish at the end, because the mates will take care of that after your trip as well. Certainly for folks who don't really feel like taking their own boat out and anchoring up on the reefs, rocks, and rubble piles, let a headboat captain do it. And of course, as we're finding out, whiting or maybe even a cobia, you never know what you're going to be going home with. If you're not fishing with a for-hire captain this week, if you're surf fishing or on your own boat or your kayak, you'll need to register to fish in saltwater. saltwaterregistry.nj.gov. Go to the register button over on the right-hand side of the page, register, get yourself in the system, print it out. It only takes about 5 minutes, and it makes sure that you're a legal eagle this season for saltwater fishing. Catch 'em up, my friends. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Oh, and to stepdad David as well. And heck, me too. I'm going to celebrate Father's Day myself. I'll see you out there. My favorite way to enjoy Father's Day will be experienced on Saturday morning, and hopefully a full box of Fluke.